I am sorry, are you trying to develop an intimate relationship with someone you deeply care about? Well, that's a shame, because I'm too busy being a film bro. It's Lightspeed Brothers on Valentine's Day. So I'm looking for movies to watch on the long weekend, and my one friend wants me to get started on Letterboxd. So I'm looking through some lists, okay? And I find one, and I see this comment on a list. This is the most film bro list I've ever seen. Laughing emoji, no hate, LOL. Fascinating. The Urban Dictionary, the most reliable source on the internet, describes a film bro as a person who views themselves as a huge film nerd while having mostly surface-level knowledge of movies. Their favorite movies include such underrated gems as The Dark Knight, Pulp Fiction, Inception, and Jurassic Park. They also adore the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I mean, kinda, yeah. The thing that I see in a film bro is an overestimation of knowledge. You can watch any of these films and not think you know more than you know about cinema. You can be perfectly aware that you know a certain amount and you're not overstepping your boundaries. But what I see in the film bros are the really intense cinefix lovers. They like the mainstream American Hollywood acclaimed films from past, specifically the 1990s, and then they dabble in the most popular genre and foreign films they can find to make their list seem balanced. But for me, it's not really film bros as much as it is film bro movies. The movies that have gained popularity or are well known for a very singular, noxious reason. That you know that certain words, certain arguments are going to be brought up whenever someone talks about the movie. And so, in honor of St. Valentine and the male desperation that rears its head this time of the year, I am giving you the 10 most film bro movies I know. So, here you go. Number 1, Cape Fear. The 1991 version. See, now this is a Cinefix pick, because no one knew about this movie until Cinefix brought it up again, and there was no reason to, because it should have been left dead forever to rot and die. 1962, Cape Fear, the original, is released, and it is one of the most pristine thrillers of its era. Its craftsmanship is impeccable, and it's a wonderful thrill ride from top to bottom. There was no need to go back and change anything about it. And despite that, the greatest filmmaker of all time, or at least arguably one of, goes back 30 years later after making Goodfellas and puts Robert De Niro as the main bad guy. For no reason. For no reason they did that. It wasn't improved in any way. It wasn't bettered in any way. It was an inferior version, and it just shows up on lists now because people haven't seen the original, but people see this one first, they think it's a pretty damn good movie, and it has Scorsese's name attached to it, and that's why they should like it. So, thank you, Cinefix, for our number 1 slot today. And we have 9 more left. Number 2, The Raid 2. Wow, Raid 2. The thing with The Raid 2 is that a couple of people acknowledged its flaws when they were originally praising it, when they were talking about how excellent the action scenes were, but they were also cognizant of the flaws of which it contained, that it was, by and large, not as good as the original. And everyone else just kind of missed that memo. What you'll see in these film bro movies are the movies that really have this type of tunnel vision when they're being talked about, that people who love them don't want to talk about their flaws or possible critiques you may throw at it. They just want to talk about the great stuff, and if you disagree with them, then you're wrong, and that's the case with Raid 2. The original Raid didn't have a lot to critique because instead of trying to manufacture an important plot in there, they just kind of let the action speak for itself and kind of let the story go through with only the action, which was a very brilliant idea. And the sequel didn't really do that. The Raid 2 goes all out on action, but it extenuates the original's runtime, but only with deeply and interesting character moments and world building that just were not needed. It wasn't confident enough in its own vision and the vision of the original to work, and because of that, it just plugged in really generic stuff that no one needed to see or hear about. But despite that, because there are so many good action scenes, everyone just wants to talk about the kitchen scene and put it away and praise it for exclusively that. And ultimately, it is not deserving of that praise. Bam, film bro. Number 3, Batman: The Dark Knight Returns. What is this? What? Give me a break. What are we doing at this point? That we still are a society that refuses to praise Revenge of the Sith, but we're going to talk about Batman: The Dark Knight Returns and put it on the top 1,000 movies of all time? What even happens in this movie? I hate DC animation. God! Number 4, Shrek. Alright, this is collectively everyone's fault. The thing is with Shrek is that everyone liked Shrek in 2001. Everyone. Cats, dogs, people, basements, stairs. Everyone liked Shrek. And then 10 years later, he got memed. He got memed bad. People started hating on Trek. They started making fun of him, and because he was the butt of every single joke, it created another counterculture in which people had to praise the film to no end, that they had to analyze every single one of its aspects in order to give some validation to the film that was already there. It was a box office smash. The critics loved it. It won the Oscar for Best Animated Feature. It got all of that 10 years beforehand, but because people had to make fun of it so vehemently that more people had to fight against it and had to keep on praising it for something that it really is not. It's not one of the pinnacles of animation of the 21st century. It's not going toe-to-toe with Fantastic Mr. Fox or Inside Out. It's simply not. And people just put it on best list now to prove some point that they simply do not need to. Number 5, any Denis Villeneuve movie. I'm just kidding, it's Blade Runner 2049, but there are seriously some other contenders on here. If I had to rank these films, Blade Runner 2049 would absolutely be at the top. It is the poster child, I feel, for it is the symbol of the Filmbro ideology, about this tunnel vision, about only liking this film for a specific reason and not accounting anyone else's opinion for it. You know, when Blade Runner 2049 was released, it's not like the most well-versed people in cinema thought it was the greatest thing they ever saw. No, it was this subsect of people, mainly people who saw Chris Stuckman's one review of it, an A+ review, and said, wait a minute, you know, this is actually the greatest film I've ever seen. And, you know, there are plenty of people who genuinely love this movie, and that's the bottom line. But whenever I see this come up, whether it be in Reddit or Letterboxd or YouTube, there is an insane herd mentality that takes over the conversation immediately when it's mentioned. For instance, in the Beauty of Blade Runner 2049 video, there is a quote, and I quote, "There are two kinds of people, those who like this movie and those who don't understand it." The last time I saw that, it had 3,000 likes, and that was like a year or two ago, so you can imagine how many likes it has now. People, when it comes to this movie, if you don't fully compliment its brilliance, you are simply too feeble-minded to understand that. That's simply not the case. It is arrogant, it's annoying, and I can't stand that happens like every single time this movie is talked about, because it has a really risky pace that I can see many people not liking. It's extremely cerebral and icy, so I think it's more of a cult thing than anything. Rather, it's something that everyone collectively agrees upon later in life is fully a masterpiece, and I don't think it's nearly as lively as the original film in terms of its actual world. So to have people like this, to say that if you do not like this movie and all its wonder and grandeur, that you are too dumb to understand it, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. Number 6, Interstellar. Oh boy. Okay. Nolan. Like Villeneuve, Nolan is a filmmaker that people will defend until death, until they are shot and hung up on the streets. It happened with Tenet, it happened with Dunkirk, it happened with Enemy and Prisoners and Arrival and so on and so forth. It never ends with these guys. And there are plenty of people, especially with Interstellar, there's a healthy group of people that will talk about it and praise it and criticize it in a healthy, provocative way. And that's wonderful. And a lot of critics do like this movie, that they put it on some of their best of the decade list or gave it an honorable mention, because it is special. It is a special film. However, with that being said, every single time I go onto a video of Interstellar, I see in the comments people saying, I don't care what anyone says, I was 8 years old, I saw this movie with my dad in IMAX, and this changed my life. He was on Apollo 11 when they launched into space, and this film means a lot to me. It's like, time out. This isn't damaging. This isn't going to harm anyone by talking in this manner. But it, again, is just the obnoxiousness that's further going to make people associate with this film with that type of behavior. That people are always trying to play a victim with Interstellar, like critics bashed it to no end, even though it was a special visual experience that wasn't similar to anything at its time. And it's just not justified because of how many people end up loving this film. You just need time for some of these movies to be appreciated. And there's no reason to, again, blindly praise it in this manner with no room for feedback at all. Number 4, A Hard Day's Night. I have no further explanation. The Stones are better than the Beatles. Take that! Halloween. Number 3 is Halloween. And this isn't really directed so much as the people. This isn't directed at YouTubers or anyone related to that. This is directed at people at IndieWire, people at Pace Magazine, The Ringer, all these, highbrow websites for movie lists. And the fact that the Halloween occupies near the top of every single best horror movies of all time list, and it quite simply is undeserved. This is a controversial pick, and the thing is, the last two acts of Halloween are some of the most riveting entertainment you're going to find in horror movies. However, the first act, everything that takes place during the day, is so blandly uninteresting. Its main character so... This is a controversial pick, but the thing is, despite that Halloween has two of the finest acts of horror ever, pretty much the acts 2 and 3, and everything that takes place during the night is some of the most brilliant horror you will find. Its first act, pretty much everything that takes place during the day is so blatantly uninteresting, its main characters so bland in their construction, that it makes you wonder, why is this going over the likes of John Carpenter's The Thing? Why is this going head-to-head with The Shining and Rosemary's Baby every single time when it doesn't need to? When Italian filmmakers broke ground in this genre like a decade beforehand. It seems as though that every single time I read something about Halloween, that it's talking about how groundbreaking it was. And sure, commercially, bring that to America, it certainly was. But the actual constructs of it, its roots, were not something that were originated by Carpenter himself or anyone working on that film. It happened before him in films like Blood and Black Lace. This isn't the first of its kind, and for all of the reasoning to be behind how it paved the way for others, it doesn't make a lot of sense when it wasn't the first one to do so. And I guess that kind of gets into Filmbro, for me, I think more generally, is this idea that you see praise going in a way that you'd like it to go in another. That I can see a Halloween being praised for what it is, and for people liking it very much, but the fact that it's praised in that manner, the fact that it's always put up on such a high pedestal, just for that reasoning, for me, is what makes it such a Filmbro movie. Filmbros is about using really twisted ideologies, very twisted ideas and comments to put your film above all the others, and for me, Halloween, for that reason, has to be on this list. I just realized I may have said number 3 for that instead of number 8, because I originally had this as a top 10 instead of just 1 through 10. I don't know. I may have been messing up the numbers the whole time. It's probably a mess, but it probably will make for a better viewing experience, to be honest. Number 2, The Usual Suspects. I don't have a lot to say about this, and that's a good thing, because got more to say for number 1. The thing with The Usual Suspects is that people only like it for its twist, and that's it. And a lot of people know that by now. It's one of the most generic, meandering crime films of the 1990s, which doesn't do anything special for the majority of its runtime, and then they have one clever twist at the end, albeit an excellent twist, and people suddenly want to say it's one of the best of the 90s, one of the best crime films of all time. And it's simply not true, and I feel as though that films like The Sixth Sense has gotten that readjustment, that yes, The Sixth Sense twist was very important, and the film overall is pretty damn good, but it never happened for The Usual Suspects. It's still in that all-time tier when The Sixth Sense has definitely been demoted. And because I think The Sixth Sense is really better, I think it makes more sense that Usual Suspects would be demoted, but hey, that's why people have opinions. Heat. Number 1 is Heat. 3-hour crime epic from 1995. A crime film, 1995, like The Usual Suspects. Heat's more interesting, because Blade Runner 2049 deals with this idea of tunnel vision, that you're not dealing with everyone else. Heat and its Filmbro-ness derives from balance, like I said at the beginning, because Filmbro lists are not the ones that are going to be strictly one thing. You're not going to immediately recognize its bias or its obnoxiousness. No, it's something, there's always a strive to find balance between sophistication and craziness, art and entertainment, style and substance. And Heat, essentially, due to one heist scene, has become the prominent image, the prominent figure in dealing with that balance. It's good. Heat's good. It's a good movie. It has good scenes. But Heat is also overlong. Its runtime is it's draining. Its subplots are dull. Its characters overwrought. Its performances cartoonish at times. Its text simplistic. Its subtext non-existent. Natalie Portman, garbage. And again, it's more than anything knocking my own associations with the film, that people can't seem to find anything wrong with it. But again, I can't help but wonder why we're putting Heat as one of the greats for virtually only its visual flair and its action sequences, both of which are outstanding, and the fact that it has many key scenes that are ones that you watch every single time. The diner scene, the scene with the hockey masks when they're robbing the car, the actual heist scene that takes place middle in the film, hell, even the final scene. But there's so much that people forget about. There's so much in between, with the nonsense with Val Kilmer, and every love interest in the film, the side characters, and Natalie freaking Portman, that I can't help but wonder, why can't we just keep this as one of the best of 1995, as opposed to one of the greatest of all time? And it's something, and I know that, as irritable as I may seem throughout this, as flawed some of my thinking may be, the whole point of this video is that we all have certain films that we think less of because of the praise of others. That the manner in which that it's been praised to no end, the overpraise, the overhype kind of kills it for us. And that is kind of my experience with Heat. When I originally watched it, I thought it was a fantastic film that I had numerous issues with. But because it's been beaten down my head so times that this is a perfect clash of style of substance, that this is one of the best films you're ever going to see, has kind of soiled the experience for me overall. And hopefully, what this video will teach you is to not be so goddamn annoying when talking about Heat so I can enjoy it again. And that's what I got. Happy Valentine's Day.